Hand it over to you, Ross.
Thanks, Lewis. My name's Russ. I'm an addict.
Hi, Ross.
And thanks, Tim, for asking me to share. I was just thinking, as you do before you're about to do a main share, and your head is racing with 1,001 thoughts, but one that kind of stuck in my head is that I feel blessed to be sat here, to have this opportunity at life, to be free from where my life was before. Absolutely hopeless, drug addict, going nowhere, wishing for the end, really, wishing for the end. And that was 3 years ago, and for me to be sat here, nervous as hell, fearful, the usual feelings that I felt throughout my life, but here all the same, amongst friends, people who understand me. Because 3 years ago, I was kind of, most days generally paralysed in the same spot, head racing with 1,000,001 thoughts, kind of gently rocking in my armchair, wondering what the hell to do, which way's up, do I go left, do I go right, generally pacing up and down the terraced house that I was living in, which was somebody else's house, basically, generally, because I'm normally crashing out at somebody's house, asked to stay for a couple of nights, and then I'm there for another 4 years. That's my usual thing. But that place where I'm kind of walking up and down, and I'm talking to myself, and I'm hitting myself in the head because of those voices in my head, and a life just overwhelmed with guilt, shame and remorse, and not too keen about the future either. Just can't seem to get it together. I don't even know what I'm trying to get back together again. You know what I mean? The old ideas of I'll get a job. Everyone has a job, don't they? And once I've got the job, I'll get the car. And then when I've got the job and the car and some money, I'll get a girlfriend again. Because that's what you do, isn't it? That's what you do in life. That's what normal life is. I've seen it on the telly. a bit like the Waltons. That's what you do, surely. And sometimes I would achieve that, you know what I mean? Sometimes I would get the job. I would go further than just getting an application form and just writing my name on it. Sometimes I would get the job, I would get the car, I would get the girl. And for a short while, all would be good. But then the novelty would wear off. Being at work starts to be a bit of a ball ache. People tend to talk to me in a fashion that I don't like. Just by the way they've said, "Morning, Russ, how are you today?" They know how to rub me up the wrong way. And I start to feel uncomfortable in this world, So generally the job goes because someone's looked at me the wrong way. There's no money, the car goes, she's starting to do my head in. And I start using again, whether I'm having a good day or a bad day. And so 3 years ago I ended up in this place of the old ideas of rebuilding it again were kind of I've been there, I've done that. I don't believe in it anymore. I don't believe I can rebuild what and why. Why am I rebuilding it? So I reached a place where, like I say, I just wish for the end. I just wish for the end, completely hopeless. So for me to be sat here amongst you, yes, I'm blessed. So how did I get to that point, rocking in my armchair, watching Homes Under the Hammer, wishing for the end? Because it hadn't always been like that, I was always a little bit of a shy sort of kid, I suppose, a little bit self-obsessed, I suppose you would call it now, a little unsure of myself, a little uncomfortable in social situations, comfortable with my friends, but if there was a stranger there, I'd kind of clam up. So when I kind of found alcohol, I'd found a friend, it loosened me up, I felt comfortable amongst people, I could tell that joke without fear of being, people just straight face, or I just felt comfortable, and seemingly no real problems. I mean, sorry, I've lost my thread a little bit here. Drinking very quickly became a problem for me. I had, stomach ulcers by the age of 20, warnings of doctors that maybe you need to kind of slow it down a little bit, maybe eat more food than you're drinking, Stella Artois or whatever it was. Maybe you need to stop for a month. I couldn't stop for a month. Try not to talk too much about my drug thing, but then, the rave scene came along, Ryan will remember that. I can't remember a great deal about the rave scene, but other people seem to remember a lot about the rave scene that I was at, and generally it was a lot of paranoia and psychosis, you know, that kind of stuff, with occasional dance moves. That's kind of how I see it. And then it was almost like I'd get introduced to a drug and it'd be alright for a bit, and then it'd turn to shit. Sorry, excuse my language, it'd turn to shit. Let's say it again. So the drinking, I couldn't stop drinking. You know, stomach ulcers, I get into the rave scene, I do sufficient substances that by the age of 27, I'm psychotic. I'm psychotic, I don't trust anybody, I can't leave the house, I sleep with knives around me. And generally my days would be sitting with my mum watching Countdown thinking, how have I made it to 27 and this is what I've ended up. This is how I've ended up, paralysed in the same spot, sitting with my mum looking after me, and kind of wishing that if she could read my thoughts, which I thought she could, I wish she'd put me in a psychiatric unit and just leave me there, because I kind of thought I'd done it to myself. Thankfully she took me to the doctors, and the doctors helped for a little while, antipsychotic medication, antidepressants, and then I was introduced to heroin. And heroin for me did what alcohol had once done for me. It gave me, I just went from really, you know, being psychotic and really caring a lot about what people thought about me, you know, to the nth degree, to when I used gear, I didn't care about anything. And I fell in love with it the first time I tried it. I wanted to tell everyone about it. You know, when I was on that central line from North London, I wanted to tell everybody that was sitting in that carriage, you need to get onto this heroin, because I felt like I was sat in a Chesterfield armchair. They were sitting in some rickety old chairs. But little did I know that for the next 15 odd years I'd be trying to stop taking heroin, with numerous detoxes and promises, and you know, endlessly sort of hurting those that I loved, endlessly destroying things, endlessly kind of saying, I'm never doing that again. I'm never doing that again, I promise. And I remember kind of like maybe I'm yet again about to start yet another methadone program or a Subutex program, and I'm kind of full of enthusiasm yet again. This time I mean it. I might even do that. Like, this time I mean it. And I do the rounds. I do the rounds of friends, and bless them, they listen. They listen yet again to this newfound enthusiasm of I'm going to do it this time. The next day they'd see me and I've used. And they say, well, you left here at midnight last night, it's now 10 o'clock next day, what's kind of happened between that? And it's like, well, I woke up. And suddenly, throwing back that smelly duvet felt like the hardest thing in the world. And suddenly that enthusiasm and that kind of optimism about my future had gone. I was kind of like overwhelmed with all that kind of, what I said, all that guilt and shame and remorse, all that stuff I'd done to people, and the way I'd lived my life, and full of self-pity, and the future just looked like a mountain to climb, a mountain to climb. So this just went on for years, round and round in circles, ever going further and further and further and further down. And when I kind of look back on it now, it's like how did I ever expect to stay clean and sober with all of that going on? All of that stuff within this already busy head. It just don't stand a chance. And I'd had clean time before. I'd had 4 years. My life improved. I had the job, the girlfriend, the car. My life was all right. But I forgot about a deal here, you know what I mean, to kind of be trying to help someone else. It's like I went through the steps, found out that I was selfish and self-centred, and went, oh, okay, that's interesting. Found out a list about amends that I should be making, went, yeah, I think they'll probably be all right with those sort of things. There's been a bit of time, so surely they must have got over it by now. and no, I'm not really helping anybody because I'm far too busy with my life, thanks very much. So I found out I was selfish, and I remained selfish, and wondered why I went back out the door again. Because yet again I'd had too much of me. That seems to be the problem, just too much of me. Trying to figure it out. How can I best serve Russ? Having no thought for anybody else, not really caring about anybody else's feelings, justify and rationalise my behaviour. So 3 years ago, with a head full of all that other stuff, plus a head full of you've had recovery, you know there's a solution. It's quite a heavy mix for someone to deal with, and it's no wonder you end up in a place where you're kind of rocking. I was blessed to get funding. I went back into treatment. I was reintroduced to these rooms with a better understanding of what I suffer from. I got a sponsor, and I went through the 12 steps. I found out the truth about myself. I found out about this illness. You know, they call it a spiritual malady. And when I kind of heard the first time about spiritual malady, I was like, what the hell's that about? But when they broke it down, it just, that's just me. If you haven't got a big book already, I see a small one there, but if you haven't got one already, I suggest you buy one. Sit down with a sponsor and go through that. But it describes me perfectly. Words like restless, irritable, and discontent. I was like, oh, that's what my mates were always going on about. Constantly in a state of boredom, like life just didn't live up to my very high expectations. Like, what, is this it? What, you want me to work 9 to 5 for the rest of my life and go on holiday for 2 weeks? And it's like, I don't think so. I'm a bit more rock and roll than that, you know, this kind of like sixth member of the Stones or something, you know what I mean? I'm a bit more a lost poet, you know. I lived in a fantasy world because I just couldn't deal with reality, basically. So I was banging trouble, and I knew I was going to do it again. Left to my own devices, I was going to do it again. So it's admitting that, you know, surrendering to that. Left to my own devices, I'm as good as dead. It sounds a bit extreme, but my father is like, I believe, was like me, and he took his own life. He finally had enough, and my head was telling me that's what you're going to do. Which is a bit heavy, I know, but that's kind of what I believe we're dealing with here. So I saw the truth, and for that small window, because it's always a small window with me, a small window I see the truth before it snaps shut again, and I justify it again. Oh, it ain't that bad. I quite like rocking in the same place. It's what I've always wanted to do all my life. I'm sure I wanted to do it when I left school, rock in the same spot and be an ESA and be a smackhead. So I was given some suggestions, which I try my best to do on a daily basis. I'm going to sit here and say I do it religiously on a daily basis, but I pray morning and night, and I ask for something to give me the strength to do the right thing, to not be consumed with myself minute after minute. Like I'm kind of flying about all over the shop here, but this is a spiritual program for a spiritual problem, and I could relate to that spiritual problem. You know, what these suggestions seem to be to me is the, how do I get out of myself? How do I spend less time with me and myself, and rectifying the things I've done in the past, changing away from this attitude of it's their problem. I don't know. It's just given me an opportunity to see the truth about myself, really. And the byproduct of that is, I can actually live in this world. You know, I could get clean and sober, yeah. I just couldn't live like that. It was just hell on earth. You know, if I had the misfortune of getting up at 8 o'clock in the morning, by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I need a good snooze. And that's not because I've worked hard, that's because I've just been sat there thinking, endlessly thinking. My head is a tormentor. You know, it's always kind of a worst case scenario kind of head. You know, if I haven't considered it, it likes to kind of consider it for me. What if this happens, Russ? What if that happens, Russ? What if this happens? this is the only thing that's worked for me. I mean, I've tried quite a few things. I don't know if I've tried everything, but I know I've tried yoga, I've tried on-chanting, and yeah, there's some freedom in that. The thing is, my head, by the second week, goes, yeah, bored now, I want to do something else. But you kind of enjoyed it. Yeah, but I'm bored now, I want to do something else. And that's what my life's been like, this kind of endless search for something to make some sense. Maybe if I move over there, I'll be all right. What if I go over there if I'm all right? Just a feeling of emptiness and dissatisfaction. My experience is, yeah, this works. Sponsorship, 12 steps, being of service, getting involved, change, making amends, helping other people. Always when I share, I don't know whether I've actually made any sense or not, because sometimes it's like trying to make sense of, I don't know. But from that person that was rocking in a chair, I know I've shown you that I'm rocking in a chair, but I'm not rocking in a chair daily, you know what I mean? But I'm able to live. I don't know how long I've been sharing for, but...
Got about 7 minutes left.
Yeah, okay.
Approximately.
Wow. Do you know what? I'm just starting to feel all right being me. That I'm all right being me. And it wasn't until I kind of realised, I reached a place where my head still wanted to run. It wanted to run. It didn't know where it wanted to run to, but it wanted to run. And then when I realised there's nowhere left to run, there was no special place I could go to, other than here and doing this. There was no kind of utopia that I might suddenly find, do you know what I mean? Because I know I'm the sort of person, I could have everything. I could have everything. And I know that I would still feel that same way. Still feel empty, consumed by me. I'm sat here today, and the truth is I've had a bit of a tough day, really. I mean, I know in comparison it's all relative and stuff, but it's dealing with some past stuff, some stuff about my dad and counselling stuff, and it's nice to just be able to be in a place where, with support and help, and I'm not on my own, that I can face up to these things today. I can face up to life. I'm not on my own. I feel like I'm going to start waffling now, but that's all thanks to this. And a massive part of that is that, thank God, in 2004, a good friend of mine called me up and said, there's a solution. And at the time when he phoned me, he may as well have been speaking Japanese, because I didn't know what the hell he was going on about. He was talking 12 steps, fellowship, this, that and the other. But he invited me down here. And, well, I want to say thank you for that, but firstly, that the seed was planted there, that there is a solution here. You never have to use again, and the word happy, joyous and free. Words that weren't part of my vocab before. I wasn't very grateful, wasn't very happy, joyous and free. And most of the time, I feel like that. Life turns up, but I have a programme to deal with that. I'll leave it there.
Thanks, Ross. Just before